Hello, Heather. How are you?
Katie, how are you? I'm freaked out, but otherwise fine, thank you.
Well, hopefully it won't last long. I feel like once we get started and start chatting, we could talk for hours, and hopefully we'll have that same experience. So thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to learn more about your story. You were born in England, but your family moved to Germany when you were a
About you.
toddler. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years old, correct.
And what prompted that move?
My dad's job, basically, he's an engineer for space and things like that, and there was no job. He was in Northern England where I met my mum, and yes, they offered him a job in Northern Germany, so he took the job and we kind of followed. I wasn't asked at the time, so.
Nobody asked you.
No, nobody asked me. It was supposed to be temporary, actually. That was the idea. And then the job situation didn't change. We'd rented a house, then they wanted to move into that house. We couldn't find anything else to rent, so we ended up buying a house. And I ended up going to school, and somehow we just got stuck.
That's how I feel. I've been living in the US for 22 years at this point,
Mhm.
from moving here from Canada. And I always say I fell in
Right.
love and got trapped here.
Yes, that's why I'm in the town I am in now, actually. It's not my
Yeah.
home, my home German town. It is a bit further south, and my husband's from here, so it's kind of.
Awesome. So you were diagnosed with ADHD about 7 or 8 months ago at this point,
Yeah, correct. End of
officially.
March. hmm Yeah.
And when did you start to think you might have it? And what were some of the things that made you think I should really look into this?
That is actually really funny because it wasn't me. I hadn't a clue. Absolutely not. I'd actually assumed my elder daughter may have ADHD, and I had 8 years ago we had her tested. She's dyslexic and has selective mutism and or a lot of other things kind of. And I suspected ADHD, but they said no ADHD. Right. I think that was wrong in hindsight with my knowledge I have now, but
Mhm.
I just let it pass at the time. So basically, I've been off sick for 1.5 years, um, fatigue and chronic pain, presumed fibromyalgia, but here in Germany, it is a bit biased with some people don't believe in it, and the people that do don't want to use the word to diagnose it. It is complicated. Well,
Sounds
whatever.
very
I was.
familiar.
It's funny, isn't it? It's strange. Yes, I was. I recently listened to your podcast with Gemma, I think it was number
Mm.
164, and found that extremely relatable. Um, yes, thought, right, how convenient that it's also part of my story. Well, whatever, that started years ago that I started getting pain and more exhaustion and everything, and things kind of escalated 1.5 years ago, and I've been off sick since then. And in that process, I've been sent to Dr. ABCDE, sort of,
Mm.
and have been looking for a place for therapy, psychotherapy, which I'm still on waiting lists. I'm still waiting after 1.5 years almost.
Mm.
Hooray. But I've had, you call them probatory sessions. That's trial sessions. Kind
Okay.
of, that's the German system. You can have up to 5 trial sessions with someone and then decide, does it fit? Are they going to take me? Whatever. And I've had some with 3 different therapists. I'll say one I've still got the waiting list. The other are retiring soon and discovered that they haven't got the capacity. But one of those, and that was in March, my first time I saw him. Um, I kind of started off with what my goals for therapy are, why I am here, this, that, and the other. And in the middle, he kind of said, has anybody ever considered you may have ADHD? Has anybody suggested that? And I said, no, why? was me all over the place, telling all my side quest stories, building out, blabbling, talking about people pleasing, perfectionism, procrastination, emotional dysregulation, not in those words, but kind of, no, as my primary goals and everything. So he said, yeah, well, he has a hunch that it may be sort of, and if I'm interested, he'd do the evaluation with me. So I said, yeah, okay. So we scheduled appointments, and I think it was 3 weeks later. And of course, you can imagine what happened in the meantime. I started researching. Instagram, Attitude Mag, books, everything. I thought, maybe he's right. Maybe just yeah, right. And then next step, how on earth didn't anybody ever see this? Yeah, too bright and too good. You know the story, sort of. So that was that kind of what happened there. And I then at the end was evaluated, came out with diagnosis. I already had a psych because everybody was trying to figure out if I had depression and if that was the problem. Basically, I think we actually figured out that is actually one of the problems I don't have. I have a lot of others, but that is not one. And yes, so I've been going there. I'm on medication. You wouldn't notice right now, I suppose, but because I can only take a low dose because I'm very, very sensitive to effects and side effects with if some things go wrong. But it is having an effect. It has calmed me down, and it has actually reduced the pain a little bit. It actually really, yeah, which I found really, really cool. It's got a bit worse with my recent COVID infection again, but it's only 3 weeks ago, so I'm still hoping that it'll go again. But I couldn't read. I wasn't in a mental state to read books beforehand properly. I loved to read, and now I can actually hyperfocus on a book for a day. And then I was, I don't know, do you know spoon theory? Does that mean anything?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, my spoons are very limited, and when spoons are empty, life is empty. Not what doesn't work well with kids because not much life is left at noon, for instance. No, I was in a state I couldn't even lift my arms to wash my hair, and now I can actually open bottles and carry things. So no, I was on books actually. Yeah, well, you get it. My storytelling is quite typical. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, I've been there. I actually asked him because I came across, when you research ADHD, naturally you come across autism, general neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and all that lot. And I don't know, there were some things that he always said, yeah, that doesn't quite fit. That is unusual, but in basic, right. And I thought, could that perhaps be autism? No, can't be, never. Yeah, well, I have not got an official diagnosis yet, but my last 7 months of diving into the subject, and I've also been to the Autism Centre here. They don't do diagnosis, but they do consultation a lot and thingy, and I've had quite a few appointments with one of the people there who does that, and we've now decided, she decided, but basically from seeing me, it was really funny. The first time we saw each other, she just said her radar just jumped. So I now actually have the confidence to say I am autistic as well, because it fits and it feels right. And I don't know, I find that quite...
That's a great point. I totally relate to that idea of having, feeling so confused about the autism. If you've listened to the podcast, it's something I talk about a lot, right? But I like the way you phrased it with the, it just fits, right? And I think that that's something about these neurodivergent diagnoses where it's like, so much of these previous diagnoses that we have gotten in our adult life just never felt right, and there's something about this that just fits to the core. And with the autism testing, I always found like I'm sort of always on the borderline, and I never understand what that means. And then I'm always questioning all the questions and figuring out if the testing is appropriate. And then everybody, friends of mine with autism are like, yeah, that's the autism side. but it's like, right?
Right.
It's and then I remember questioning, or I remember when I was reading Unmasking Autism by Devin Price,
Oh,
they
that's a
say in the,
fantastic
isn't
book.
it such a
I
great book?
loved it.
Such a good
I
book.
cried halfway through it, but I absolutely loved it.
Oh, well, even just I listened to the audiobook, but the audiobook came with a download of PDFs of all of the different charts and everything that are referenced in the
Mm.
book, which are just so helpful. It's such a great book. I'll definitely put a link in the show notes for this episode. But Devin Price talks about, not people don't spend a lot of time questioning. People who aren't autistic don't spend a lot of time questioning if they're autistic. I always think about that quote when I'm like going down the rabbit hole of do I or don't I? Because
Yeah,
it's a weird question to think, like, a lot of experts say there's a huge overlap between ADHD and autism.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure there is. Of course there is, but why is it an overlap? Why isn't it also ADHD? I think that for
Yeah.
such a long time, clinicians could only diagnose one or the other. They
I
weren't
know.
allowed to diagnose both until this
Yeah.
most recent DSM. So I think it's really
Mm.
interesting to think about how how we're redefining both of those. So now with your daughter, is it or with either of your girls, are they have they been diagnosed, or you said you were before we hit record, you said you were seeking a diagnosis for your oldest?
Yes, I'm actually on the waiting list for actually getting an appointment where I had her evaluated for dyslexia at the
Mhm.
time. And being a speech therapist, I actually saw it at a very early stage that she was dyslexic, and searched to get an evaluation for that as early as I could, so that she could get the accommodations that she needed. And I actually had to walk the person through that. But okay. Do you hate it as well that you end up having so much more knowledge than the people that you're actually sitting across and are supposed to do know more than you, basically?
Oh
I
my
don't know.
goodness. Well, actually, the fact that your psychologist recommended it and was an adult male, I think is tremendous. That's
Oh,
very
I found that
rare.
he's ADHD as well, so
But that's how
he
this
knew what he
should
was
be.
talking about.
I
I
know,
loved
right?
it.
But in
He
an
was
ideal
fantastic.
world, more
I
and
know that was
more,
such a coincidence, and I'm really, really so grateful for it. And I'm
yeah.
so sad that he's retiring and couldn't take me on, because we really clicked. It was really great. I
Mhm.
felt really seen for the first time in I don't know what. It was such a fantastic feeling. I just cried.
Oh, I know.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
back to my daughter.
Um,
Right. So, and then, yeah, as I say, I actually already had a hunch. It may be ADHD, but they decided it wasn't. And the knowledge I have now, I say, yes, well, I understand why you didn't see it, but I know now. I'm absolutely convinced that I'm right, that she's
Mhm.
also ADHD. So I'm waiting now at the same place. But I've also got another place that I may be able to get an appointment. That was a recommendation from the autism center, actually, that girls get diagnosis there as well, which is
Ah,
a good start anyway.
yeah.
And I mean, she'll be 17 in January, but yeah, but I have to actually go to a set appointment to then queue to then hopefully get an appointment for her 2 months later. That is their system. My other daughter is already in that psychiatric clinic, I think you'd
Mhm.
call it, um, because she was diagnosed with depression.
Mhm.
She was in a really bad state 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, and she's now taking medication. That's helped a lot. And she actually has her ADHD evaluation tomorrow,
Oh,
because we
wow.
are so very similar.
Yeah.
And she is already almost has I don't know. They did the IQ test in the process, and I don't know. It's almost. It's not. It was 127 or so, something like that.
Mhm.
No, no. I think the level is 130 to be. I don't know. You call it gifted, I think, in English, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So she's at the same school that my other daughter is. She chose. She didn't want to go to a grammar school or a school that everything would be hard. She preferred to go to the inclusive school, when they have
Okay.
also she can also do all her qualifications there and carry on for A levels. No, my almost 17-year-old is doing that. She's in 11th class, they call it. 10th is GCSE level. I'm not quite sure what the American equivalents are. And 11th to 13th, you have 3 years of A level classes where you get then the German Abitur, as it is called. And yes, so but it is, they have a different system, and it is more inclusive and more focused on not pressure and having to achieve and learn like this, in, out, in, out. It's more focused on more inclusive learning, different methods, and also with disabled people of all kinds of, no, it's a mix. You have all the different levels of intelligence sort of in the classes as well. So, and she is top of her class. She is bored, but she says she prefers to be bored than to have pressure. And I
I
can
get that.
relate to that, because she's a perfectionist, a people pleaser, doesn't want to be perceived negatively, but she has also quite a bunch of executive dysfunctioning and the emotional dysregulation. We both have that extremely, very strongly. I spend most of my time co-regulating, because I'm actually quite good at that, because I understand. I can find words for both of them, actually, and I don't know. I have the impression that it helps them a lot. So we'll see what comes of that tomorrow, and I'm still waiting for the other, because my eldest daughter said, "Please get me evaluated. I want to be able to say, 'Told you so.'" Because hardly anybody believes us. Not quite true. Her teacher she had for 6 years, he had a hunch that she may be autistic, and he's been very good for her. And so yes, we have a family history. I spoke to my mother as well, told her about it and gave her ideas, exams and everything. She said, "You know what, a couple of years back, I thought I may be autistic." I thought, interesting. So yes, we've been had a lot of contact discussions, talking and all sorts. It's been an interesting past 8 months.
It sure has, right? What about your partner? Do you feel like he might be neurodivergent, or what has he thought about this journey?
I think he's a little confused. When I gave him he goes absolutely, he has trouble understanding ADHD, whereas I see a lot of things that could be neurodivergence in him as well. It might just be chronic stress. He is an IT consultant in management positions, so I'm afraid that is also, I don't know, they're just this, that, and the other. I don't know if he ever thinks about it. I actually had suspected him to be the person that might have given it to my daughter. You see, I was so blind on the whole subject. And then I talked to my daughter, yes, this, that could be. And she says, "Mum, you do that too." Yeah. And I always praised myself with being being able to reflect so well. Yeah, obviously I really was blind, completely blind. No, but when I've not told him the autistic traits, he said, "Oh yes, definitely, absolutely." He really saw me in that. Yes, I don't know. It's a journey. We'll see how it goes and everything.
Now, I have to say, looking at your resume, the signs were there all along. It's just, I have to read this out. So you went to school for music, and biology, and then
I did all sorts.
I know, right? And then you were a certified speech therapist, and then became you then worked in cultural studies, in philosophy and literature. And then your side quest, which I love that. I'm going to have to put that on my resume from now on. Official category of side quests, which was, oh, yes, and I'm also a lactation consultant.
Well, that's actually a connection to my speech therapy then.
Okay.
Because,
I love that. Oh, yes, of course. I love that.
Following disorders, of all kinds belong to speech therapy. I don't know, in German there's it's a different expression, but the equivalent would in British is actually well, English is speech therapist, but it's basically also voice disorders and also swallowing disorders,
Yeah,
all age
right.
groups. And yes, I always had the idea to combine. I mean, if you want to treat the pathology, you need to know the physiology.
Mm.
Yeah, where
Mhm.
you're coming from, basically. And yes, so and when and actually when I was we lived in a different town because my husband was doing his doctorate. That was in Lübeck, if that means anything to you, right in the north of Germany. We were there for 3 years, and that's where I had both my children. And I was in a breastfeeding group, basically, and the person there, I found it extremely inspiring, the work that she did and how she helped and the community and how it was organized. So I said, yeah, I want to do that too because it really inspires. It's a German expression, AFS, Arbeitsgruppe freier Still, Arbeitsgemeinschaft freier Stillgruppe, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever. So I signed up with them and I joined. I joined. I did the training for it. Got certified, and and actually ended up having my own group for 5 years, and otherwise doing telephone or personal. But then as I say, I did also training workshops and everything from the speech therapy side to to learn and get the qualifications for that. So I could basically treat babies and toddlers, and I was actually quite unique in the region for that. So the only problem with that is that doctors, pediatricians rarely see a problem when there really is a problem. You have parents struggling with trying to get their kids fed and to the extent they go to and everything. And then the doctors just say, oh, it's gaining weight, no problem. And you think, so me getting prescriptions for it was a really, really hard thing. And then at some point, it wasn't that I'd had enough. It was in my early 40s when I'd actually wanted to have more kids and it didn't work out. And I'd got to a point where I needed a bit of distance from babies, which is why I kind of put that to one side and went more into adults with Parkinson's, after strokes, things like that. That's the nice thing about speech therapy. You have so many different disorders and age groups that you can, that's a nice ADHD thing, focus on one, and when if you feel you need a change, you can just transfer to something else and specialize in that. Yes. I
Absolutely.
actually had the perfect job when it came to that. And that was actually quite beautiful. Yes, but no, the lactation consultation, I really loved that. I had my own group in a mother's place every 2 weeks, and yes, that was a heart thing. One
Oh,
of my side quests. The other was the quiz, and
yes, the quiz mistress.
that happened accidentally as well. I was actually for 2 years. I started in between jobs, somehow stuck, got don't know, carried on, and then I quit because I'd broken my foot at Irish dancing, and then they changed owners, and then at one point, a few months later, I got this telephone call, this panicky one. Could you imagine doing the quiz? The people who'd done it before, the new owner, and then they didn't get on, and they needed somebody to do it, and I said, perhaps. So that kind of happened. Originally it was, yeah, we'll give you one, you just have to read it. I tried. But trying to host a quiz and then you get questions on the things that you haven't written or researched yourself. I just couldn't do it because I need to know what I'm talking about. I don't know if that's a
Mhm.
perfectionism or nothing. I don't know. But it's kind of, I need to know. And I need to know to answer questions and how to pose the questions and how to help them in between. And anyway, the whole concept that the person who had written it wasn't my concept. So I kind of ended up doing my own complete thing, which was an awful lot of work every week. But I have an awful lot of random knowledge as well because of it. Every time something comes up, I say, oh, I know that because I had a quiz question, you see.
Ah.
So yeah, I haven't been doing that for also 1.5 years because as I say, I'm off sick and I get paid for it. And even if I only did it once a month, I'm a bit scared of my health insurance that they say, oh, if you can do that, you can go back to work. And I'm afraid, no, I can't. That doesn't work.
Oh.
I do it for various reasons: chronic migraines, fatigue, the whole thing, that spoons and everything. I'm not reliable for patients.
Mhm.
So that's why I actually started studying at I don't know what you call it when you're external. It's not. I don't go to the place. I do it all online. I get scripts. I get do exams. I go there for the exams during Corona. I did them online, and I read up and I do tasks and everything for it. But it's not that I have lectures where I go to. There are video lectures occasionally, and also seminars that are sometimes online, sometimes somewhere else. But I say I've got that on hold as well at the moment because my brain just wouldn't do anything intellectually, emotionally, or physically. Everything was just draining. I just
Mm.
couldn't handle it. So I went, actually, it was cultural studies with focus on philosophy and literature, because kind of I could go into my interests of philosophy and learning more about the world and learning to write better, because I am absolutely hopeless at structuring written work. I'm overwhelmed. I know basically what I'm supposed to be doing, but it's like trying to write a summary. I can write on one text, five summaries, and they can be all different depending on what I prioritize. Or if I prioritize everything, then the summary is longer than the original text. I just can't do it.
Mm.
I need somebody to tell me what they want me to focus on, because I can't make the decision what's most important or what they want me, what they hear. I have that in a lot of things.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
then I've got all this vast, enormous amount of knowledge in my head, and half the time I can either not grip it, can't access it, or can't structurize it, even though I'm
Mhm.
actually able, but I need somebody to walk me through. I It's only through all my research that I've actually figured out where my problems are that I have had all my life, and what accommodations would actually help me. So yes, and
Yeah, I remember interviewing Catherine Ellison very early in the podcast. We were talking about that exact thing because I remember long before my ADHD diagnosis feeling like I might have some sort of processing disorder, because some sort of learning disorder, because I felt the exact same way. I loved input, and she called it stuck on input, which was, I love learning, I love voraciously reading. I was like, I would obsessively go down these rabbit holes, but I
mm,
wasn't able to then turn around and explain what I had learned, or break it out into, like, what was that book about?
mm,
I don't know, I just knew I liked it, right? Like, it was very difficult, and especially in school and university I had a really hard time.
mm,
I would read and read and read and prepare for an essay, but when I had to turn around and write a paper, I just was so difficult getting, like you said, like getting all of that knowledge into some
mhm,
kind of order. And so I always thought there was like a prioritization processing disorder in there somewhere. I just didn't know what to call it. Now I
mm.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
well,
now I'm curious, have you found anything, or do you have any theories about the connection between autoimmune disorders and neurodivergence? Because I feel like there's such an overlap, and I'm curious if that's, and it's so common, fibromyalgia, but also a lot of autoimmune disorders are related to stress and burnout. And I'm curious what your theories are, if anything, on that.
I find it awfully hard to find information on that,
Mhm.
actually.
Yeah.
I came across, it must have been about the same study that Gemma came across. I think it was a 2018 study or something like that, where they figured out that a lot of people with women with fibromyalgia have actually undiagnosed ADHD, with the
Mm.
recommendation, if they have a fibromyalgia diagnosis, do a screening for ADHD as well. And I think it makes an awful lot of sense, because I think part of fibromyalgia is a dysregulated nervous system. And when you imagine what ADHD wreaks havoc in your body on so many levels, that it's actually, I don't find it much of a coincidence that that can be a result if you, especially as a female. And then, of course, you have the hormonal things that seem to play some kind of role in it. I read, is it Pain and Prejudice, Gabriel Jackson? I found that a very, very good book, basically on female pain history and all the kind of pain disorders that kind of overlap or interact. And also her idea is the autoimmune thing that can't be proven in so many cases, because everything just comes up with no results in the end. And if that is the fact, then you can choose from A, B, C, and D what it may be, what relates most to. And sometimes I wonder if it's basically all one and the same thing, and just depending on where your symptoms cumulate more, then that is the name it'll get.
Mm.
Sometimes I will wonder if that could actually also be with ADHD and autism, that in 10
Right.
years' time we'll end up calling it something completely different, a neurodivergent spectrum
Yeah.
as an
Yeah.
overall idea. But yes, no, I think as a brain, nervous system, and hormones, I think there's so much interaction that we do not understand. No, that there's just yeah. But I'm
Mm.
having actually trouble finding more information. Every time I kind of try and Google and find things on it, it's scripts and scraps and this, but it's always, yeah, we don't know enough, and actually we have no flipping idea.
And also, it happens to women, so we're not going to look into it.
Yes. So feminism is one of my special interests, always has been, in intersectional in all rings. So yes, I'm well aware that that is actually one of the main problems. It doesn't get funded.
Yeah.
Nobody interested. It's only women. That is also another thing, that's why ADHD goes so, yeah, well, they're downhill with women, and that they get these conditions. The whole socialization, the whole trying to fit into the roles, the whole having to excel and be better if you even want to do something. Or I'm, for one, I'm not really happy, and I hate cooking and cleaning and the whole lot. I don't have this gene that I'm happy doing these things, but I like eating, so
Yeah.
naturally I have to cook, because somehow nobody else does it if I don't do it. Let's face it. But yes, I don't know. There's an awful lot of social pressure, and when you have ADHD, you have even more of it, because you feel as a failure and get told you're a failure on so many levels, that yes, just being a woman is also already a problem. But with ADHD to go with it, I'm not surprised that the studies come up with 40 to 50% that they go together, sort of. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, and that it can manifest in pain. I'm not surprised if your brain is everywhere all the time. Brain on
Um,
tour.
yeah, it was interesting talking about burnout. I'm in school now to become a mental health counselor, and so we've been talking about burnout a lot. And the definition of burnout in the curriculum there is much more about like a sense of hopelessness, a sense of giving up, right? You don't want to do things. You don't want to go to work. You don't want to make these phone calls, whatever. It's an avoidant kind of sense of burnout. And that's not how I experience burnout at all. I feel like burnout for me is much more of a physical, it's much more in the nervous system, right? I feel like it's this, you run yourself until you are completely out of battery, and then your body is screaming at you to shut down. Like your body, like that's how I kind of experience burnout. And I was trying to, it seems like autistic burnout is very different from the medicalized understanding of burnout. And I'm just talking about this on the top of my head, so I'm not really sure if there's any official definitions. But this is my new rabbit hole, is trying to figure out the difference
Different kinds
between,
of, yeah,
well, just
I get it.
right, the difference between neurodivergent burnout and burnout as it is sort of understood and discussed in the medical field with clinicians, because it seems to me that the way they're describing it is not my own personal experience of it, which sounds like a lot of life when you're neurodivergent, right? The way the way clinicians describe things, even depression, right?
Hmm.
It's, our I feel like the way we experience depression is very different from how it looks on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, I've tried to, I've these past years, I've been trying to figure out, do I have depression or don't I, and where are the differences? And when I listen to my daughter and other people that I know who have depression, it does definitely manifest differently from my emotional dysregulation when I get into an emotional paralysis, I'd call it, or complete over related to hormones with me that's got quite extreme now around my age. It's around ovulation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I feel like I just can't cope. I'm overwhelmed and I just want to press a button and be out.
Yeah.
It is all too much. And I know I just have to hang on. I know it'll be over in 2 days. I just have to hang on and this state will pass. But the intensity and the thoughts and the feelings I have with it are hard, are really,
Mm-hmm.
really hard. And when my daughter talks about these things and about depression, or my friends and the thoughts and everything, they are in a state, they have no recollection of the past. They can't remember that they were happy, that they felt good, and they can't relate to the fact that they will feel good again. They are caught in this process. And I find that is a really,
Mm-hmm.
really big difference, because I know it'll pass and I can remember how it is to feel good and happy. You know, that will be one thing. The other thing with the burnout symptoms is it's well, I don't know, burnout, chronic exhaustion, fatigue is, as you said, it's on a physical level, but even when I can't do it intellectually or emotionally, drains me as well, but it still ends up being physical in that sense, that I have to rest, I have to lie, I have no option, I can't do anything else. It's not, activation is the completely wrong way to go about it. I really have to pace myself. And that's when my ADHD really regularly trips me up. I have a really, really big trouble pacing myself because I am enthusiastic about so many things. I enjoy doing so many things, and I want to do so many things, apart from things that I have to do, unfortunately. Leveling that out is a pain in the neck anyway. So, but it's kind of, but I can't, and I have to stop myself from doing it. So that it has a completely different quality,
Mm-hmm.
what
Yeah.
what I feel in that sense. And I'll say when I'm really, really bad, I can't even read. I can only listen to something, and then it has to be something things. And that is the, I don't know, the drive, the impulsivity, the I want to do things and I'm not happy if I can't do them. So I get into a bore out, even though I'm burnt out. And yeah, and then you have the autistic thing, which is all the sensory stuff on top of everything, which is what I'm just trying to unmask and figure out. And that is quite weird, where you basically start noticing where you push through and and over your limit over and over and over and over again. You've lost your complete sense of self, who you really are and what actually affects you and not. And that is so draining. That's basically where my psychiatrist, even though I don't have an official diagnosis, and he doesn't do it. He says he has no idea. They don't do it in their clinic there. Fine. I love him for that. He's Greek, by the way. I find you rarely meet a clinician who says, I don't understand this. I have no idea. And I really love him for it. That is, people should do that a lot more often.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
He's with me. He started actually trusting me and also the autism center person. She jotted it down. And when I said, right, I'd like to just work with the fact, we'll just pretend that it is. Well, I don't have to pretend, but he has to pretend. And that my way of trying to get out of all this mess leads via accepting I'm autistic and working with my autism and ADHD and not against it. Yeah. And that's just taking, because that's actually my best bet of recovering and getting out of it, hopefully at some point, unless the fatigue and the fibromyalgia are stuck and I'm done. But I don't want to accept that yet. I've not got that. No, we're not doing that.
Right. I feel like my main purpose in life now is to continually keep myself from doing 90% of the things I want to be doing. It's just this
That
like
must be so hard.
intentional slowing down, right? So when you were talking about pacing yourself and wanting to do all those things, I was like, oh my God, I'm sure everybody listening is just nodding vigorously along with you. So I'm curious, is there anything that works for you in terms of slowing yourself down or helping to pace yourself?
Trying not to make rash decisions, thinking about things for 3 days before I follow up on them. I manage that about 70 or 80% of the time.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm actually quite proud. The other thing is my body just crashes, or no, either I get a complete crash, when I've overdone it, and I admit I frequently do, because I love going to concerts and gigs. My autism doesn't, but my ADHD does, and my music and everything. So it's usually, I already always go on the train. I don't drive there anymore because driving has spoons. Yeah,
Sure.
it takes spoons, so I take the train. Of course, it's all costs. Yeah, so it all has quite a tax. Stay overnight. Yeah, so to give me time, go in advance. Take 2 days if necessary, so I have enough leeway and enough time to try and recover. And don't plan anything for the days after, because the flare-up or post-exertional malaise is bound to hit. I know it, and I go do these things seeingly, because some things I just can't not do. And other things is kind of then, as I say, take 3 days, and sometimes I really have to decide against it. And basically, it's what I have to do more is decide against doing a lot of things for other people, because I'm the carer, but I don't care enough for myself, and I have to kind of switch places. It's hard, and as I say, I am waiting for therapy to help me on that. And what I'm also trying to do is not lose all the energy over all my chaos. I've just started occupational therapy. I'm a speech therapist, and it never dawned on me that might be a good idea. Well, I did in the end. But I found somebody who is doing her bachelor thesis on ADHD. She's half my age, but she's great. So I'm hoping that I can save a bit of energy with her help. Because I say, most of the
So
things I
wait,
really
she's an
know myself.
occupational therapist who's specializing in ADHD?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Wow, so fascinating.
I was lucky
Um,
there. Sometimes
yeah.
yeah. I mean, you can imagine after I found out about neurodivergence and everything, that I thought, right, I want to be the speech therapist specializing in ADHD. That was one of my first things. The second thing was, I could write a book, and all the games that I did with all the children, how can I give hints how they can be neurodivergent friendly? I don't lack ideas, but I really, really have to stop myself and say they are nice ideas, and they must stay ideas for the time being, anyway.
I used to have a list called Building My Empire, which
Oh,
was where
that's
I would put all of those. I would put all of
nice.
those,
Yeah.
all the things I wanted to do and just put them there as a place to, like you said, be like, that's nice. We're just going to leave this here and move along. Um, but yeah, that's amazing. Now,
Yeah.
I'm curious. One of the things I always like to ask my guests is if you had a alternate name for ADHD, would you call it something else?
I think ADHD doesn't fit at all. I haven't come up with the perfect name, but I have a couple of ideas. My younger daughter and I discussed it last night.
Oh, wonderful.
But basically, I'd actually like something that includes the word spectrum, but I haven't come up with that yet. But I can indulge a thing. Basically, when I said that some people come up with squirrel on speed, sort of, and she said we had to think of Scratch from Ice Age. So
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Extremely hyper focused on his acorn, gets himself into an awful lot of twists because of it, because he doesn't notice what's going on around him, just chasing his acorn, loses it because it's distracted, and so we thought, right, an acronym Scrat would be lovely as a relatable. So we had Speedy Creative Roaming Anxious Thoughts as a
Oh.
scratch. That was Elaine's favourite, or the scratch spectrum. Sort of. My first thing that came to mind, but that concerns because I think everybody comes up with something different because it's impacts people differently. For
Yeah,
me, executive functioning, I'm a mess, and I think that I actually have autism and ADHD. They team up against me there. I think that is going on because other things they do quite nicely, but that's always so. I had EFD, executive functioning disaster. That describes me very nicely. Then I had the beautiful brain on tour, referring to the Big Bang Theory, TBBT. I liked that. Then something that describes me very well is the walking contradiction. As in The Walking Dead. We could have say spectrum of contradictions would fit also quite nicely. So yes, I don't know. It's something that I'd like. I like base. I'm still looking for a name that describes the essence of it and not. Oh, it's hard to say. I'd like a word where I say you can. I mean, people do use ADHD to say I am ADHD because it feels so detached when I say I have ADHD because it is part of me. I can't
it's an
disconnect
identity.
from
Hmm.
myself. Like I can't disconnect being autistic, but I can say I am autistic. I prefer that over I have autism. It just feels right. And the same is with ADHD. So in English you say I have ADHD, and in German it doesn't work very well.
Mm.
ADHDistic or something like that would also be quite fun. ADHDistic or so. No, but I don't know. And I need I mean, disorder always sounds weird, which is why I actually prefer spectrum, because spectrum leaves it open whether it disables you or not. And disorder is also always the focus on the other. And I don't like that either. It's disorder always means how much does it inconvenience everybody else? I mean, hello, thank you. It inconveniences me most, and it inconveniences me more when you hate me for it, you know.
Yeah. Oh, what a
The
good
way you
point.
treat me, the way you see me, the way you talk about me, the way you talk to me, the way you criticize me, it is not that's or not the way I have to function. No, that is all kind of that is part of. No, you are disabling me, not no. I mean, yes, my forms disable me as well, unfortunately. So for me, it is a disability, but I know it isn't for everybody, and it is basically a spectrum, which also has extremely cool things to go with it as well. So yeah, I don't know. As I say, I'm still looking for the right description when it comes to that, and I
You
don't
and
think
me
there's
both.
one
I
size
haven't
fits
found anything either. But I think, like you said earlier, I think we will be moving more toward a more encompassed spectrum language around the neurodivergent community and where we all fit within that. Feels just like the diagnosis. It feels sort of like it that feels right.
Yeah.
Far more than
Mm.
deficits and disorders and all of the ways in which it was
Yeah.
earlier, how it's been identified in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it does have an impact in society, in the world, and the way people
Mm.
look. I mean, there's a lot of change is still needed in the way of looking, thinking, and everything. When I was diagnosed, the psychologist asked me, "How do you feel about it?" And I say, I found it freeing and fitting, and it only dawned on me a lot later that a lot of people experience it or feel that it is a stigma. And I noticed I don't feel that at all.
Mhm.
But I think I just take people as they are, as it is. It's just, yeah, it is. End of story. And I see that with a lot of things. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was actually also fairly quite good at my job. I've only
Mm.
been able to say these things recently. I never really saw it dawn on me and everything, but that I was good at my job is because I was able to see and feel the people and just take them as they were and give them what they needed. And that was the same with the grown-ups, with the children, but also with the parents. And some people, they came to me, they apologized for their children, and they almost nearly cried when I said, yeah, that is okay, that is normal, that is not for me anyway. And that's no, I don't have a problem with that at all. No, or I don't see that as a problem or no, as wrong. Yeah. And they
Yeah.
get told that their kids are wrong all the time. And for me, it's just, yeah, well, we have this, that, and the other, but there's nothing wrong about it. Yeah.
Mm.
You need a bit of help here or there, but shy kids, for instance. Yeah, so what? Then the kid is shy. There's nothing wrong with a shy kid. Not
Mhm.
at all. Why?
Yeah.
Why do kids have to be like this, or that? Why? No, they don't. I get really, yeah, pissed off when kids come like that. To admit, I don't like that, but you really see the people, how they relax and how grateful they are meeting somebody who sees it like that and talks to them like that.
Mm.
So I don't know. That's one of my. I don't know. Yeah.
No, that's beautifully said.
Hmm.
Well, thank you, Heather. It's been so great. I really appreciate. I'm so glad you took the plunge and reached out and answered my call. And
So
thank you so
yes.
much. I
Yeah.
really, really appreciated hearing your story, and I'm sure there will be lots of listeners who deeply relate to your experience. So thank you for sharing.
Yes. Thank you for having me, and I think I survived. I think I actually enjoyed it.
Oh, dare say you enjoyed it.
Well, that doesn't sound nice. No, it's. I'm not. I know I'm moving around a lot and I'm all over the place, but I'm actually more relaxed than I may look. Let me put it that way. I
Oh, I'm
feel
so
more
glad.
relaxed. It wasn't a strain. I didn't feel wrong. It was extremely nice talking to you. I could,
Oh.
as you said at the beginning, we could go on for I don't know a couple of hours. Yeah, kind of. I don't know. I'm now interested in yeah, learning more about you, hearing more of your stories, the toing and froing. It is, I don't know. It's nice. Like, can we meet for coffee sometime?
I do. I feel that, and I feel one of the things that I love about having ADHD is how we can connect with each other so quickly and
Yeah.
so on such a fundamental level where I'm like, if I were to, I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to meet you in person, but I know if I did, I
Not.
would, right, I'd be like, we feel like we're best friends, right? I really do feel that closeness all the time. It's so wonderful.
Mm,
So thank you again, Heather.
yeah.
It's been
Thank
a
you.
real joy.
Thank you for your work. It's really
Oh,
lovely.
thank you.